Good afternoon, everybody. I'm an associate member of T3 Trading Group, which is an SEC registered broker-dealer and member of FINRECIPIC. All of my trades are placed through T3 Trading Group. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your own financial condition. Position disclosure. I've taken off a few names on both sides, so a little bit lighter, but still got some positions on as this market really begins to extend higher in what I would argue is an unsustainable manner at this point. So spies here, we're trading down a little bit from where we closed. So only up a quarter of a percent. It's a little bit more than that. We rolled pretty hard in that last 30 minutes. So we were up a good bit more up until into the close there. The Qs are up three quarters of a percent on the day. They also rolled a little bit into the close. The Russell is down half a percent on the day. The RXP is smoked. RSP down 0.9% today. Breath very poor. TLT was up. The dollar here was flat. Gold was down. Bitcoin ended up getting sold pretty heavily into the close. Is continuing to sell a little bit after hours. So that is down. Ethereum smoked off 4.5%. Solana's down 3%. It's funny when you scroll through like crypto and the RSP and the IWM, and when you see that the average stock in the S&P was actually negative today, not positive, more stocks were negative than positive, it kind of feels like it was a down day today, doesn't it? But the market was higher because why? Because, well, primarily Nvidia. Really all the Mag 7, but Nvidia. The Nvidia event today, I didn't listen to it live, but it seemed like Nvidia was doing their best to give a shout out on a partnership to basically every single company in the S&P 500. They just named one name after the next after the next. Obviously, the one that was probably most notable is their $1 billion investment into Nokia. But yeah, it was the Nvidia show today, and Nvidia being the largest company in the S&P 500 takes a lot of money to move it, but when you're moving up Nvidia, it inherently is going to be moving up the S&P. It's inherently going to be moving up the Nasdaq. So had Nvidia close today on a percentage basis? Yeah, Nvidia up 5% on the day. I mean that is just so much market cap that I mean it's massive. So you can almost say that it's incredible that the Qs are only up three quarters of a percent, considering that Nvidia is up 5%. That the spies are only up a quarter percent, considering that Nvidia is up 5%. That's another way to view it. Everything under the surface today did not seem good. And when you look at the spies and the Qs, we're hitting a point here where the upside extension, in my opinion, is beginning to become unsustainable. Obviously, we still got a couple events coming up. Tomorrow is going to be a really big day between the earnings reports after the close and the fact that we got the Fed at 2 o'clock. We got more really big earnings from Mag 7 Thursday after the close. So, we'll see how that stuff plays out. But spies here are closing up $10 off of the ADMA on the daily. So basically spending the entire day in kind of extreme upside extension. And the Qs here are like 16 bucks or so, even after pulling in from their highs. $16 or so extended from just the ADMA on the daily, just that upper band of equilibrium. So again, it does appear that we're moving in a way that's becoming unsustainable. Underneath the surface, a lot of companies are not trading well. The RXP is poor, the IWM is poor, crypto is poor. A lot of the meme stocks I still think are not trading great right now, but Nvidia came in and really saved the day. And there was just this like really strong underlying bid all day in the index. But we will probably see short-term tactical in the red zone again tomorrow. So that'll make it two trading sessions in a row. It's very rare to see short-term tactical to be in the red for more than three. So tomorrow will be two, and same deal with kind of the way that I measure extension. You can get this for a day, you can get it for 2 days, but seeing extreme extension, especially to the upside, usually can't last for more than a few trading sessions. But with all these events coming up, we'll see how it plays out. But generally, at least in terms of short-term trading with this degree of extension, I'm more interested in shorter-term shorts than longs. But obviously, you got to respect the charts. And if a chart is breaking out on its daily chart, especially on a news move, like Nvidia did today, or like SoFi did on its earnings report today, um, you got to respect the levels. You don't want to be shorting things immediately above a resistance level in the moment that a stock is breaking out, regardless of how extended you might think that the indexes are at that level. Just find something that's relatively weak. If you want to be short because the indexes are extended, find something that's relatively weak. So that's kind of the bottom line there, I think, as far as the market goes. Or of course, you can also trade, things that are in play because they've got earnings news or what have you. So trying to think if I even have anything else to talk about. I mean, it was really just Nvidia. Nvidia broke out to all-time highs. That first bar was really interesting because I didn't think that Nvidia traded well given the volume that it put in on the 1:10 p.m. candle, and then the very next candle it almost negated it. And that actually reminds me, we had this crazy tail come into the market here at 12:30 off of the United States China headline, which was another one where it's like they hit us up, the algorithms hit us up really quick on that headline, and then immediately we were coming back down, and it almost looked to me at that time like the spies and Qs were actually going to give a failed upside move on that headline and come lower. But that's why I always pay attention to like the starting point low. I was like, I need to see these Qs get below 631, and then this could really mean something that we shot up on this headline and we came right back down. With the spies, pretty much the same deal here. I don't think that the full degree of this tail is real, but it was a really big uptick on it. We almost lost that low, but we never actually lost it. It needed us to get below 686, and we couldn't do it. And even with Nvidia, I was noting here into this up move, I was like, guys, this thing should be higher given the volume that it's doing and the headline that just hit. This thing should be higher. And one of the things I like to pay attention to, I think as everybody knows, is when a stock can't give the move that it should give, based on really positive or sometimes really negative news. And then immediately after on the second bar, this thing was trading weak, but same thing. It never broke that starting point. 193 quarter was the starting point on that, and I was like, you could try to short this if you just don't think it looks right, but you really needed to get below 193 quarter in order to confirm that. And of course, if it breaks highs, then it's starting to prove the bulls really are in control. And then after 15 minutes of not trading great, obviously the headlines were continuing to come out. This Nvidia then actually broke up, and when it broke up, it really started to actually confirm its daily chart breakout to all-time highs, and then it just was like a click after that. And you guys all saw the consistent bullish option flow that was coming in. Calls after calls after calls after calls, just gamma squeezing this thing higher. And you don't want to be in front of something that is super in play and is completely breaking out on top of massive option flow that is hitting pretty much all at once. That's a recipe for a stock to really be able to continue. And as a matter of fact, not only should you not be short it, you can look to buy it. I personally have always struggled and will always struggle with, because I just don't like to do it, um, chasing extension. Nvidia, by the time it was really breaking out post 1 o'clock there, on the small time frame, was in a day four to the upside with already a lot of extension on the daily. So even though you could have probably bought 196 or so on the way up and made a really nice trade for yourself, and you could have recognized all that bullish option flow, it's just not something that I'm personally going to come in and chase to the upside based on where the daily chart's trading. But that's just my rule book, and obviously some of the people here on the team are more shorter term momentum traders than I am, and they can take advantage of those types of moves, especially, how many times did you guys see Pat posting the Nvidia bull flow coming into the VTF? It's just over and over and over again. So at a minimum, it means that you shouldn't be shorting it. especially once it broke that original high that I was just pointing out. Once it broke the 110 high. Yeah, 205s, 210s, just going off completely nonstop there in Nvidia. And Nvidia was without a doubt the name of the day. And then, they're announcing that they're doing partnerships with just kind of one company after the next. Like Caterpillar got a mention, but then eventually sold. Lucid. And the interesting part is most of them sold back down. Like if you look at the Lucid chart, um, they ripped Lucid on the headline and then sold it 100% retracement all the way back down. I guess this Joby here is still going after hours. But most of the names that got mentioned actually ended up trading back down, but not NVIDIA itself. So NVIDIA is looking phenomenal, but it's really extended at this point, as is the Nasdaq, as is the S&P. So, I maintain that this market is really bullish here as we're just beginning to enter the most seasonally bullish period of the year, and the corporate buybacks are just about to turn back on. But it's also starting to move in a way that I think is unsustainable. Which doesn't mean that it can't do this for another day or two, especially if these earnings reports go well, especially if you get a dovish a dovish cut tomorrow. We could certainly continue for a day, 2 days, 3 days, but I would say the general rate of acceleration is becoming unsustainable. And at some point soon, we need price or time correction at the index level. So we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll, I think, look for those shorter term short setups as they come in to try to take advantage of it. And I guess that's all that I've got. Decent amount of weakness underneath the surface, I think, in a bunch of other names today that you also could have taken advantage of just with the broad speaking relative weakness. So I got it was otherwise it was like in some ways it was a quiet day, especially like the beginning portion of this day when you're looking at the spies. Like we gapped up and sold down, and then we just went directly sideways, very, very tight from like 9:50 really all the way until 12:30 when that headline hit on China. And it was really more, I think, not that headline that was driving us higher in the afternoon, but Nvidia. I think that they ignored that one pretty quickly. Um, so yeah, I think that's all that I've got. Uh, Happy to turn it over to you guys for questions. I'm not seeing anything in the VTF for the moment. Let me check out the YouTube. From Apex Joy, VIX up due to Fed hedging. It could be. We certainly see that in front of big events. It also could even be related to some degree to. Uh, I think there's actually a whole confluence of factors that make people probably want to hedge a little bit. That is driving the VIX up. One is that they're probably adding exposure to the long side. They're probably being forced into the long side, but then they're hedging themselves a little bit. Two is it's not just the Fed. It's the Fed. It's earnings, and I actually also think that some of the bearish flow that we're seeing and some of the reason why the VIX might be up with the market up today is because the shutdown thing. I think that there's a real chance. Like right now, everybody's focused on what's happening immediately in front of us, which is the Fed and the earnings reports. But I think that there's a decent chance that come Friday, if there's still not progress here at the U.S. government on getting some stuff done, and people begin to lose the SNAP benefits, and your air traffic controllers and stuff are not getting paid. I actually think that we might finally be near the point where the market could begin to care about the government shutdown, and that also might be impacting the VIX a little bit. And just, one of the things that's just super interesting about today's trading session, just turning back to the indexes, is the degree of bear flow that we saw. We saw so much bear flow coming in at the index level today. Some of it priced out till the end of this week, some of it priced out until the end of next week, some of it priced till mid-November, November OPEX. But just a lot of consistent bear flow coming in, some of it opening, some of it not. But normal. Not normal, I would say. It's very different, actually, than most of what we've seen on the upside of this move. But I would also argue that the way that the market is broken out the last few days is also very different than we've really seen at any other point in this market upcycle. And a lot of the times that is how up moves end. I talk about this a lot. We just recently were talking about this with Sandisk, right? Sandisk, as an example, and granted, the upward channel was pretty accelerated, but Sandisk is in this upward channel, and then starting on October 23rd, it breaks its up channel to the upside. When a stock breaks its up channel to the upside, it's going parabolic, and that means that the move is becoming unsustainable. And when it's been a really big move in front of that, very, very often that's the last leg of it. And lo and behold, yesterday we had like a really good short trade on the RDR setup within the parabolic move of Sandisk. And I would argue that the market is to some degree doing the same thing. You could maybe say, if you just want to draw the trend lines here on the spies and the Qs, that we kind of are just playing some catch up from having like a week or two where the market was a little bit weaker and corrected through time, and we're only now kind of getting like a little bit above the upper range of the channel if you were to actually draw it, and we're also above the like Bollinger Bands on the daily chart as well. But this is beginning to look like a channel that's breaking to the upside in a way that is unsustainable to me. So, I think that's just, there's just several factors here that I think are leading to the VIX trading higher today, with the market spot up, vol up is very normal at a certain point in a parabolic move for the market. And also just the consistent downside hedging that we're seeing. Thank you, Plasma Lab. David Dean, how short are you now? I'm still pretty sizably short, actually, just because of the market extension that we have. I've gotten out of a few names. I got out of Tesla, when it broke out yesterday. Got out of Nvidia when it broke out today. I got out of SoFi, half of SoFi yesterday, as it broke through 30 right in front of the earnings report. Half of it today after the earnings report. So I did take some off, but I've still got, I'm trying to do some quick math. I don't know, 4/5 of my shorts on here, just because of the degree of market extension that we have right now. Bitcoin getting hit. STX is up after hours on its report. If anybody's got the STX numbers and can post them, I'd like to see those. Big ratio spread on XHB. How's that XHB chart doing? It's a little sloppy, that XHB chart. See which way this thing can break. Above 110, it'll start looking a lot better. Jerry saying, I'm thinking there may be great short opportunities outside of the Mag 7 who have weak earnings. Yeah, I think that there's great short opportunities all over the place right now. You could certainly be focusing on relative weakness. Again, IWM, RSP, a lot of the names, whatever it was, the 390 stocks of the S&P that were negative today. You can certainly be focusing on that relative weakness. It's one of those things, we always have been talking about this. When we hit a point here, like, right now the indexes are super extended, so we want to be looking for those extension shorts. But are you better off shorting something that's relatively weak, which therefore means it's not as extended, which therefore means you don't really have like as good of a reward profile just on the chart? Or are you better off shorting something that's been strong because it's gone parabolic or it's most extended, and therefore you've got like a significantly larger reward profile? And I've never seen like a straight answer to that, just in anecdotally in my trading. Sometimes the relatively weak names are weak for a reason, and that's where you get the best bang for your buck when the market corrects its extension. Other times, though, they've already had their move, and it's just the money that was running into those last handful of stocks that got them super extended that then runs right out of it, and then that's where you get the biggest bang for your buck. I think it definitely depends a little bit on the situation, but I would be having names on the list on both sides to potentially look for short, just with where the market is right now. From Dennis, RGTI. I got out of my RGTI short today. I think it's going a lot lower though. I still have QBTS on though. and OKLO, yeah, are still names that are very responsive to shorting pops, easy to get distracted to short exuberant strength, but maybe better to focus on the weak names. Yeah, again, that's kind of what I was just talking about. So totally agree. It's RGTI potentially breaking its wedge to the downside. Did not close well today, despite this name got mentioned by Nvidia, or maybe RGTI mentioned them. Seeing some cross currents on that. But stock sold off on that. I think there was a quick uptick on RGTI today. If you look at the 5 minute chart, when I think someone said in the VTF that like their name is being mentioned on the screen or whatever at the Nvidia event, you had this really quick uptick on volume that then got pulverized to the downside on volume and was unable to recover. It actually seems like, and I didn't watch the event myself, so I might be talking about some stuff that I'm, not correct on. But it honestly seemed like most of the names that got mentioned, uh, eventually actually resolved to the downside. And again, you can look at Lucid, you can look at, I know Caterpillar got a mention. There were so many stocks that got mentioned today. What did TSM end up doing? TSM ended up strong. I mean, semiconductors just in general were really strong across the board. For me, Vixie I think they voted on the bill in the Senate for the 13th or 14th time at this point. Shutdown is bad. I'm not implying it's not, but what specifically were the reasons why it brings stock valuations down, overall economic numbers going south from people not getting services from the government? Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. So, for the most part, all the studies show, and this is why the market does not go down on government shutdowns anymore. It used to. But all the studies show that when the government shuts down, you lose some GDP immediately, but then you get it back because all the workers who are being forced to work right now, but not getting paid, they eventually get all their back pay. And then, they've got their money. But you're hitting a point here where after a certain period of time, there's a lot of people out there that live paycheck to paycheck. And maybe you can miss a paycheck and survive, but at a certain point, you start missing multiple paychecks. You got to start digging into your savings. You got to sell some stock. Got to figure some other things out. And then the SNAP benefits thing is also kind of a big deal. So I think that you're hitting a point where, again, circling back to the research we were reading when the government first shuts down, at a certain point, it might become lost GDP that you can't fully get back. Like if we're shut down for 2 weeks, you're going to lose like whatever the calculations are, 2 weeks worth of GDP, and then you're going to get it all right back because everything plays catch up. But you start hitting a month plus, you start losing these SNAP benefits, you start losing whatever healthcare costs are potentially moving higher. People aren't getting paid and are having to sell their stock or borrow money from friends or something in order to pay the rent. If the government's not giving you your paycheck, you still got to pay rent. Um, you still got to go to the grocery store and buy food. Like that happens no matter what. So you hit a point here where that starts to matter. And I think that, come this weekend, that's when they're saying like those SNAP benefits are going to run out. That's where you might see a more significant actual impact on the market itself. So hope that helps, Mr. Uvixi Bull. From Eli, kind of looks similar to that breakout run up on the precious metals. Yeah, it's a gold and silver. That was another one that went completely parabolic on the daily chart. It's crazy how many charts have gone parabolic. You know, this is similar but different. This ascending channel broke to the upside, but like the more it went up, the steeper the slope got. It's really more the definition of a parabolic move than a 45-degree channel that then directly breaks vertically up. But it's also parabolic, but really it should be that the slope increases as you move higher. So this gold is like Shield chart. It's like a picture perfect part of the parabolic nature of a market. It just becomes very hard to say, you know, this easily could have been the high on October 8th. And then you had the down day there. But 2 days later, they were making a new high. So if you're short because you're like, oh, it's parabolic, and then you catch the move, you got to stop yourself out because it wasn't it yet. And then they give you a whole another leg, and things went even more parabolic. And then finally, they got this thing so parabolic that it ended. But it wouldn't have been impossible we closed on highs here on October 20th. Was that was a Friday, right? No, it was not. Um, it wouldn't have been impossible to get another up day or another two up days even after that. So when you're watching the move higher, and it's the same thing right now when you're looking at the indexes, you know that it's unsustainable. You know that it's hitting a point where the way this is moving, it's not going to be able to last at the rate in which it's going. We saw that with Sandisk, we saw it with gold, we're seeing it right now, I think, with the indexes. But you can't know, all right, was this the peak here on the 8th? Was this the peak here on the 16th? Is this the peak here on the 20th? You can't exactly know. So you need to, there's a couple ways you can try to play it though. The best way to try to play it is to sort of, and the quantum names, again, so many things parabolic recently. We can view that as well. Just becoming completely unsustainable. There's a couple ways you can play it, right? You can really wait for that like topping tail type signal to short verses, or you can wait for it to break and then really short it on the way down, which is more of what I did with the quantum trade. Um, but you got to be very, very careful just shorting the stuff that's going parabolic while it's on the way up. Or if you are going to do that, you need to make sure that you're doing it in a small enough way with your sizing that it's going to be able to make sense, where you can afford the move against you. And you just got to make sure that you're very, very, very small as like a feeler position or a small build-in process in order to be able to actually do that. Thanks, Pat, on the STX numbers. I'll have a look at that after I get off the meeting. Looks like a pretty good report, though. How's the name trading on it? Name's trading decently. Not up huge, but decently. Chris today saying today's high in IBIT's important. I agree. It's not a good looking candle for that IBIT. I don't like the lower high in Ethereum. Ether, $28 on the downside is going to be pretty important. Yesterday's high is important on the upside. Solana too. This crypto does not look good to me right now. Does not look good. All given lower highs. It's been incredible to me that the like when you look at the sort of Bitcoin on October, this is what I actually would expect the stock market to look more like. But obviously that has not happened. Uh, I guess there's not as much positive gamma in Bitcoin. So yeah. Um, cool. What else? Eli Poet and BTS. Yeah, Poet looks kind of gross now. This thing had just broken to the upside 2 days ago, and now it's a complete failure. That there's big support here at 7. I think that these most of these meme names are going to continue to go down. Yeah, NVTS maybe below 13. Thank you, Shob. Um, what's the deal? What is it, Chris? Eli on CCL. Yes, CCL. I didn't look at that. I know we called for the short in RCL. CCL, I guess, is just moved as a secondary to RCL. Don't know when the earnings report is, unless I'm mistaken and I missed it. But I think this just moved as a secondary to RCL. But yeah, breaking down off that upper level support into the lower level support, and we'll see if it loses that lower level support. Oh yeah, what's Visa doing on its report? Up and then down. Yep. Booking up. That's an impossible stock to trade. I look at it, but I don't trade this thing ever. Spread is way too wide. Back over onto the YouTube. Nothing else going on there. All right, looks like I got through it on the VTF also. So I'll wrap it up there. Fed day tomorrow. I guess just a quick brief on the Fed day tomorrow. Um, you know, the day of the Fed is usually a little bit of a trickier trading session. We'll get our normal price discovery period in the beginning of the day. Usually midday it gets quiet. That may not be the case tomorrow, just given the amount of daily chart extension that we have. 2 o'clock, we see a lot of reactionary movements. Pay attention to the starting spot at 2 p.m. And then the day after the Fed day, Thursday, is usually more important. Obviously, this time around, though, what happens on Thursday is going to also be influenced by a whole slew of important earnings names that we have Wednesday after the close. So we'll see how the Wednesday Thursday actually works out. But the big thing to watch for on the Fed tomorrow is not the 25 basis point cut. Just buy the market because there's a 25 basis point cut that's 100% priced in. It's the dovish or hawkishness of the language around it, and it is the language around the ending of the quantitative tightening, the balance sheet roll-up stuff that's been going on for quite some time. Does that end immediately here at the end of October, or is that probably going to be ending at the end of December? I think that the market is pricing in October at this point more than December. But if it turns out being a December thing, an end of the year thing, then you might actually get some market weakness from that as well. So that's it. Have a great night, everybody. I will see you all tomorrow.